The problem is China has a plan. We have nothing. We don't have a plan. He used to say this, 15, 20 years ago to me. Beijing wants a bigger role in the global financial system, and gold and Hong Kong are going to be at the center of it. This is going to be the biggest own goal anybody's ever seen. Because as that chart shows, the reserve status of Western debt is no longer considered neutral.
What about do you want to talk a little bit about how China is going to use Hong Kong to be the center of bullion dealing for the world and probably upend the LBMA?
Huge news. Absolutely huge news. In the long term, earth-shattering. After Hong Kong's kind of sad downturn over the past, 8, 9 years, they're bringing it back. And we got a new exchange opening up in Hong Kong under international law, international, accounting standards, with, fantastic, experience going back to, a minimum of 150 years. And the exchange, there's a new exchange now that's being reformulated. The original exchange was opened in 1910. It's going to be open outcry. So, get down there, lease a seat, get your jacket on and hit the pit, brush up on your Cantonese. I'm sure English will be allowed in the pit.
100 at market. I know the signals.
Yeah. Oh boy, I'll tell you, it would be nice. It would be nice. So, to go back to Jim, what Jim always used to say to me is, Pedro, the problem is China has a plan. We have nothing. We don't have a plan. He used to say this, 15, 20 years ago to me. And, he's got some people who really believe in that too. Anybody who follows the Colonel Douglas McGregor and his commentaries on the Ukraine war, used to say, there's no plan. There's no plan to execute. There's just ideas people throw out. So it seems like it has a mirror in military planning as well as financial planning. As you say, we don't have a plan. Well, we've got derivatives. That's what we've got. We've got collateralized debt obligations to sell. Short-term thinking abhors a plan. Short-term thinking doesn't want a plan. Who gives a damn about 20 years in the future when you've got CDOs to sell this quarter, this month? And that's what you're seeing.
This is the critical difference. While Wall Street is obsessed with the next 3 months of profit, Beijing is executing a 20-year plan. To stay ahead of these massive global shifts, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Now, watch how they are using Hong Kong.
See China moving slowly, step by step. Now, this is one of the first really big moves. We have a pipeline now coming from Shanghai to Hong Kong. So you can now be in the special administrative zone, which, you can fly in and out of as easy as any airport in the world, no visas, no this, no that, and it's going to be a custodial center. They've got one vault already set up. They're thinking about taking another one so that they can get delivery. And they're essentially what they're going to do is they're going to be the face of the Shanghai market. So, China's activating Hong Kong as its outward-facing financial center at a time when yuan trade and yuan loans are starting to grow. Yuan interest rates are what, 2.5%? And the country's suffering from deflation, which is horrible in one way, but it'll keep a lid on interest rates. Whereas here, we keep talking about longer rates, and it's not happening at all. If anything, rates are going up over the next year. I know everybody in the market, every pro says we're going to lower rates, and the 10-year is going to come back down to like 3. Well, I don't believe it's going to. And so, you've got Western legal system. The financial architecture is not CCP. it's, the same one that they used to have before. It's just they mothballed it and now it's open again. So between that and the custody that, the Chinese government can apply to the physical, the opening of the vaults and the repositories, it shows you that Beijing wants a bigger role in the global financial system, and gold and Hong Kong are going to be at the center of it. It's going to take a while. They just did the ribbon break, on this thing a few weeks ago. And what's more, for those who are interested in that type of market, is Swiss PAMP, P-A-M-P, probably the biggest refiner assayer. They just broke ground on new offices, and their staff is now 300% over what it was at this time last year. So the Swiss are going to be giving this their stamp of approval. And Heraeus is also on the exchange now. They've got a seat. They're going to participate. So, the Swiss stamp of approval is there. That's going to be incredible, because so many of the Swiss and British and American refiners have pulled out of the market years ago. Johnson Matthey went away. I can't remember who bought them. Someone in China, I think. Who was it? Valcombe, the big boy. Valcombe got taken over by an Indian group. But, the multilateral vaulting system, which Beijing is trying to set up, which is going to serve as a collateral mechanism, for trade balancing, is starting to have a front-facing place in Hong Kong.
Note the strategy here. China isn't just trading paper contracts. They are building a physical infrastructure, vaults and delivery systems to control the actual metal, not just the price.
You said that this is going to be the standard here, the kilo bar?
That's right. The contracts for kilos. So that tells you retail, but custodial will be probably for London good delivery. And people should remember too that just so people know, with the change in the refining systems that have gone on, London good delivery, which used to be 23% from East Asia, from Asia, it is 67% Asian delivered now. A lot of Japanese, 11 refineries in Japan, 12 refineries in China, other refineries in India, although they've been well behind the game. So there is integration between the Shanghai Exchange and LBMA. These are not like the Great Wall of China that's dividing the world. The gold world plays to a different tune. It tries to avoid geopolitics, although even the Swiss are getting dragged into it now by Trump with the tariffs, because they turned around and they said, we want the usual thing, 35% tariffs, unless you come and open up a refining system in the U.S. The U.S. has no major league gold refiners anymore. I mean, I don't know what happened to them. Engelhard, I think, went out of business decades ago or something. There's other small ones, but not ones that are really significant. So they want the Swiss refiners and assayers to come in and open refineries there. And the U.S. government has been saying this, and the Swiss have said, yeah, well, we don't really have that much interest to it. That was 6 months ago, and about 2 weeks ago, they said, yes, we're looking into it because they're threatening UBS. Behind the scenes that they're threatening UBS. I'm almost positive of it. I mean, that's my conjecture.
Yeah.
But they've
maybe Trump has a plan vis-a-vis gold. Maybe they realize that they need to stop just selling paper and derivatives and do real gold.
Maybe, but the way they're strong-arming people is pretty incredible. So they're strong-arming the Swiss again, because what they're doing is they're turning around to them and saying, your biggest, Credit Suisse is gone. Goodbye. They are no more. They got a shotgun marriage with UBS. And now UBS, their entire business now, outside of retail in Switzerland with its population of, 7.5 million people, not going to be a big business. especially when everybody's banking with the cantonal banks, their business is in high net worth money management in the United States. And you can tell that behind the scenes, they're just saying, you get your refiners over here, or we'll shut down UBS in the United States and you guys will have nothing. And all of a sudden, the Swiss have done a 180 and they said, oh yeah, we're looking into it. But what they're really trying to do is pray that the problem goes away. So
yeah,
that's the politics of refining.
Yeah, to wrap up, I wanted to touch upon something that you pointed out before we started, is the face of de-dollarization. And I guess that's got a lot to do with what's happening with the gold market migrating to the Far East. So I'm going to bring up a chart you sent me here from Tavi Costa, who I've actually had on the channel a few times.
Right. So. Great chart. Here you can see, what foreign central banks are moving towards. And that little circle on the right shows you that treasuries are, not really moving up much anymore, and gold is starting to break out to the upside. It's a long-term chart going all the way back to the 70s. So you can see the long-term momentum that's based there.
Pause and look at that trend. For the first time in decades, global central banks are dumping U.S. treasuries and buying gold. They are voting against the dollar with their wallets. This is what experts call the weaponization of finance. By freezing Russian assets, the West inadvertently proved to the world that if you want safety, you need physical gold, not dollars or euros.
And now also with the United States, trying to change its maturity description of what a treasury is going to be. I have no idea how long the 30-year treasury bond has to live, but I wouldn't be surprised if it got rolled down into the 10-year in the next few years, and the 30-year just went off the board. I mean, the 30-year, I don't think the 30-year existed before 1975 or something. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's it for the long-term treasury market. And I don't know if they're planning to replace it like they think, or do something with stable coins, but it's going to be tough. If you look at Tether, even Tether is moving into gold huge now. They've got more tonnage than some sovereign nations. So there's a lot to that. But the real change of de-dollarization that we're seeing now isn't just on this simple front, but the de-dollarization is the result of the sanctions. And when somebody writes the history of this stuff 50 or 100 years from now, like we've said before, this is going to be the biggest own goal anybody's ever seen. Because as that chart shows, the reserve status of Western debt is no longer considered neutral. And when that status changes to something that is, geopolitically impinged upon, you're talking about a significant amount of damage being done. And now with Brussels, and we're coming to a head on this Euroclear, 300 billion in Russian assets, and everybody's fighting over it. And Trump says he wants to get it into his hands to invest in Ukraine with Russia. And, the EU is trying to get it, and the Belgian government and the people who run Euroclear are like, oh my God, this is going to turn into a disaster. There's a big article in the FT about it that, that the people who run Euroclear are saying, don't do this because, if you do it, all the confidence will be lost in Europe as a financial center. And then, who in their right mind is going to trust assets that are based in the EU? And they needed to keep the war going because it's getting to the point now, it's so serious that if you don't have a war, you're not going to have an EU. This war with Ukraine is all the EU has anymore. Everything has been bet on this war, and they lost it, and they don't know what to do. So you take the money, you ruin the financial center. You try and keep this war perpetuating, it's going to turn into a nightmare. So I don't see how anybody in Brussels gets out of this. What do they say? What a tangled web we weave when we thought that sanctions would cause Russia to bleed.
Yeah, and the other thing, Peter, is that in the post 1971 world, we've had a system where people have confidence in government bonds, especially treasuries. But with the sanction regime and what they did to Russia's reserves, I think that's over now. And in like a multilateral world, the only thing that will do is physical allocated gold and silver. And I think that's what the price of gold and silver are telling us. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And that's why China's making the move now. Look at the timing. The timing tells you everything.
Yeah.
You know, they know it's not like they just came up with this plan. They've had this plan on the shelf for 25 years. And now they said, now we're going to execute on this.
Do you remember, I think it was 2023, Xi Jinping went to the Kremlin to meet Putin, and they were coming out. And they said something. Well, this is going to be the biggest change in the world in 100 years. Maybe this is what it is.
Oh yeah, they directly said that. And then you had the famous pose of Putin with the 400-ounce bar, and then holding up that gold coin right when that speech was given after the meeting. It looks like it could be. I thought everybody had forgotten about that, except us gold bugs. But it's America as a repository, as a custodial for sovereign wealth now is being called into question. That's a serious matter, a very serious matter.